We're seeing a bit of a changing of the guard in the NBA this season as the former powerhouses and top-tier superstar players are beginning to hit an age where they are slowing down, and the next crop of talent are beginning to overtake them. It's never easy to see legends of the game and all-star talent regress, because these are players that have provided countless hours of entertainment for us over the last few years, but all good things come to an end. This brings us to the topic of today's video, where we'll be discussing 5 players in particular who were some of the best players in the league just a short time ago, but are now beginning to look a bit washed up this season. The players on this list may not be completely finished or even bad by any means, but they find themselves mentioned today because they've fallen off hard compared to where they once were. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first former star we'll be discussing today that is starting to look washed this season is Kyle Lowry of the Miami Heat. Lowry has been one of the fiercest competitors at the point guard position in recent years, and is not only an NBA champion, but has been a multiple-time All-Star and fantastic leader throughout his tenures with the Raptors and even the Miami Heat last year. The whole reason that the Heat brought him in was to hopefully elevate themselves with his championship pedigree, and while they did come close last season in the playoffs, Lowry's body ended up not being able to hold up at age 36. Injuries hampered his playoff run last year, and this season his shooting and overall playmaking have taken a notable dip along with his defensive impact. He's shooting below 40% from the field and just 35% from 3, while scoring about 14 points per game, while dishing out fewer assists per game than he's averaged in over a decade. The Miami Heat, in terms of net rating, are about 2.5 points worse per 100 possessions when Lowry is on the court compared to when he's on the bench as well, so the hustle plays and overall leading impact that he brings isn't even there anymore, and unfortunately, the Heat are stuck with his hefty contract for another year after this season. The next star player looking a bit washed so far this season is Kawhi Leonard of the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, I'll start by saying that this one absolutely is injury-induced, so it's not quite fair to call him washed in the same sense as some of the others on this list, but even as someone coming back from an ACL injury this season has been objectively disappointing for him so far, and there's good reason to worry about what he'll be moving forward. Everything seemed as though he would be ready to go at the start of the season, but then after the season opener, he missed the next game, he played 20 minutes in the third game looking incredibly mediocre, and then he missed the next 12 games after that because of load management on that knee, along with an ankle injury that is now nursing. He's only played in 5 total games this season so far, and in those games, he's averaging just 10 points, shooting the ball below league average, and visibly looking like he has lost a step. We've become so used to players making full recoveries from serious injuries like that I think we've forgotten that it's not a guarantee that these players get back to the level that they were at before the injury occurred, and with all of the uncertainty surrounding Leonard right now, there's a real chance that his best days are behind him. The next former star looking like their best days are behind them this season is Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors. Now, Klay has had a few blistering hot shooting nights recently, including a 41-point game against the Rockets, but he also just scored 5 points in a loss to the Mavericks last game, which sums up perfectly where Klay is at with his game right now. When the Warriors dynasty was at its peak, Klay was arguably the second best shooter in the whole NBA, behind only his teammate Steph Curry, knocking down an insanely high volume of threes at a ridiculously efficient rate, while also locking up the opposing team's best perimeter player on defense. Nowadays, he's as streaky of a shooter as it gets, and while he is making 39% of his threes, which is still above league average, it's not the rate that we've come to expect from someone like Klay. His erratic shooting has proven that it can either win the Warriors a game, or it can shoot them out of a game, and unfortunately his perimeter defense has also taken a step backward on top of it. He's scoring fewer points than he has since the 2013 season, he's shooting the worst he ever has from the field, and he's not locking up on defense like he used to. So while he is still absolutely capable of heating up and looking like prime Klay on occasion, he's probably not going to be doing so nearly as regularly anymore. The next star player looking like his best days are behind him is D'Angelo Russell of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Russell is just 26 years old, which is why his inclusion on a list like this is so wild, because he came in as one of the most exciting youngsters in the game, and as a 22-year-old was named to his first All-Star game. His creativity, combined with his production, was supposed to be something that grew over time, but ever since that All-Star season, D'Lo has been trending in the wrong direction, and now he's looking like a total shell of his former self. He's supposed to be entering the prime of his career at this age, but instead, he's playing like a complete liability, and while he's not solely responsible for the Timberwolves' struggles this year, he's definitely contributing to them. This season, Russell is averaging the fewest amount of points he's averaged since his rookie season, he's shooting the ball poorly, making just 42% of his shots and 31% of his threes, he's a liability on defense, constantly getting taken advantage of on that end of the floor, and while he is distributing it decently, the impact in that regard doesn't make up for his other shortcomings. With D'Angelo Russell on the court this season, the Timberwolves are a whopping 8.3 points worse per 100 possessions, which is staggering for a guy who is supposed to be one of your best players. Luckily for the Timberwolves, this is the last year that Russell is under contract for them, but for Russell, he may be in for a rude awakening next summer when trying to negotiate another big money contract. And finally, the last player we'll be discussing today whose days as a star are likely behind them is Nikola Vucevic of the Chicago Bulls. Vucevic arrived in Chicago 2 years ago, hopeful to turn the team's misfortune around, as they were looking to put an end to their rebuilding era and start contending. In his last season in Orlando, before being acquired by the Bulls, he was averaging about 25 points and 12 rebounds per game, shooting the ball 48% from the field and 41% from three, demonstrating outstanding versatility offensively and lights-out shooting. He's also been one of the better passing big men in the league who plays selflessly within the flow of the offense, so he seemed like a perfect fit. Last season, things started off well for the Bulls before injuries struck, but this season, they seem destined for more mediocrity, and Vucevic's decline plays a big role in that. He's now averaging just 15 points per game, he's shooting the ball much worse from three, making just 34% of his attempts from deep, and defensively, he has been a mess. Based on how much the Bulls gave up in the trade to acquire him, that deal will be looked back on as a disaster in hindsight, and as Vucevic also enters free agency this summer, he too is about to see a pay cut coming his way. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these stars fading away lately. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.